It gives you a sense, it calms you down and makes you feel like there's something else going on in life besides your job that you're sick of. But it's not real, it's not lasting, it's false, it's an illusion. In this world, if you're replaceable, you will be replaced. So the only defense against that is to be irreplaceable in this world. And the good news is that you are, at your core, irreplaceable.
Could you perhaps just define for us what sublime really is, what a sublime experience is, and the distinction between real and false sublime experiences? Because I feel like this relates to
really?
finding that seed, right? It's about finding authentic seeds within us, as opposed to when emotions can be distracting and misleading.
Wow. I never made that connection. And it's the book that I'm writing right now. So thank you for that. I have to think about that. I'm writing a book on the sublime. And I have several ways of kind of illustrating. I generally like to use a metaphor. And the metaphor is that being a human being, being a social human being living in a particular culture, means that you live inside of a circle. And that circle of that time are the conventions of thinking, of ideas that are acceptable, of behavior that is acceptable. This is where you can go mentally, where you can go physically, all the codes and conventions. So that circle for ancient Egypt and for 21st century America, they're obviously very different, but it's the same circle. It's the same limiting factor. You're not supposed to go outside of it. These are thoughts, experiences, behavior you're not supposed to do. The sublime is what lies just outside that circle. The word sublime comes from on the threshold of. It's like here's a door, and the sublime is literally at the threshold of the door. You're looking out into something else, right? And the quintessential sublime experience is a near-death experience. You're standing on the doorway, the threshold of death itself, right? And so in my book, I'm illustrating the different kinds of sublime experiences that you can have in relation to the cosmos, in the relation to thinking about being alive. Just being alive is the strangest sensation you could possibly have. I know that very personally after my stroke. I go into childhood, chapter on childhood, and how sublime your own childhood was. I go into animals, relation to animals. I have a chapter about the brain, chapter about love. I'm working right now on a chapter about history. Okay? But what I'm trying to say is the human brain is wired for these experiences. It's wired for transcendental experiences that take us out of the narrow little realm that we live in. Because we're aware of our death as the only animal truly conscious of its own mortality. And it frightens the hell out of us. And the idea that we can see something larger than just the banal parts of our life. There's a doorway that allows us to kind of transcend the moment, to feel connected to something larger, to feel connected to some power in the cosmos, to evolution itself, right? And so we're wired for that. And I'm writing a chapter now about 40,000 years ago at the moment where I think the sublime was born. It's a story that I'm trying to illustrate right now with our upper Paleolithic ancestors. So it's deep inside of us. We need it. We have to have it. In the 21st century, we have very few avenues for it, any real avenues. Religion used to be the main kind of way of accessing this. And so, because it's so deep, we reach for false forms of the sublime that give us the sense that we're transcending, but it's not at all, because sublime has to come from within. It's an experience that you have, that you're generating in your own mind, in your own experience. The false sublime comes from outside. It comes from drugs. It comes from alcohol. It comes from shopping. It comes from online rage. It comes from joining a cause and just getting out all your aggression and violence, right? It comes from causes. It comes from addictions. Okay? It gives you a sense, it calms you down and makes you feel like there's something else going on in life besides your job that you're sick of. But it's not real, it's not lasting, it's false, it's an illusion, it's not based on anything real. It's not connecting to that deep part of human nature that's wired for these experiences. So what happens is you have to have more and more and more and more of it. You have to have, more of this rush. You need more of the drug, you need more of the alcohol, you need more of the sex, you need more of the porn. It's never going to satisfy you. But the real sublime, you don't have that feeling. It's like, it's transformative. Once you feel it, it lasts for you for the rest of your life. It's what Maslow again called a peak experience. So that's the difference between the false and the real sublime. I haven't quite connected it to what you were saying, but if I think about it, I think you're on something very interesting.
I mean, maybe the connection I was trying to draw was doesn't hold, but yeah, for me, um, those early experiences of seeing things that just delighted me in a way that felt like that not only is well, the thought process was a long time ago when something like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this exists. This is so cool. This is the coolest thing. And so clearly created an activation state within me. But then there was also a thought and a feeling of, again, a lot of this is sort of pre-verb. It's not truly pre-verbal. I could speak at that age, but it was, um, that's of me and I'm of it, right? There's a connection there. And then it was, there's something to do about this. The activation state created in the body was, I need to learn more about this. I need to tell people about this. I need to think about this. I need more examples of this and see whether or not they're all like this, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so certainly it meets some of the criteria of a sublime experience. And I knew, again, when I was in graduate school and again when I was this young professor about to transition to tenure, that I knew it was going to do something different. It was as if I was on the threshold of something, but I didn't know what that next thing was. But I could trust it because of that early experience of knowing that's the thread. Like I'm an amphibian. This is my environment.
Yeah.
And you're an amphibian too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And we're different amphibians, but we're going to be amphibians together.
Right.
And there's a permanence to it. It does seem to transcend time. I'm obsessed with time perception, so I have to be careful not to go off on a tangent about that.
too.
But the human brain's ability to fine slice or macro slice time, it's incredible. And it's been said of not just addictions, but also interactions with toxic people that they murder time. That humans have I think it was Jung, I'll look it up, but one of the great psychologists said something to the extent that addictive behaviors, thought patterns, substances are humans' attempt to murder time so that they don't have to address their mortality.
Yeah.
And that's always made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, we'll say kill time was about expression.
Kill time through passive engagement, but also kill time through trying to get overwhelmed or overtaken by an experience or a substance.
As opposed to when you're truly connected, you have that sense of flow, and 3 hours can pass by and you're not even aware of it. So time is a totally subjective experience. It can be extremely slow and tedious and you feel very depressed, or it can pass by, but it passes by without you even noticing it. And it's a wondrous experience, When I'm deep in my writing, I'm not aware of the time passing. I'm so involved, I'm so immersed. It's a deeply, deeply pleasurable experience of time. It is sublime. And yeah, so I agree with you. I think your distinction is very interesting.
I'm eagerly awaiting your next book, but we won't rush you.
Well, I'm so immersed in it that I could talk for hours, because I also have a chapter in there about what I call the daemon, which is like that voice inside of you that speaks to you. And I'm writing a whole chapter about how sublime that is when you connect to that voice.
Always stick to what makes you weird, odd, strange, different. That's your source of power, which is similar to occupy your niche. Embrace your strangeness, identify what makes you different, fuse those things together, and become an anomaly.
Yeah. Well, in this world, if you're replaceable, you will be replaced, right? So if in your job you're in your 20s and you're doing something that other people could do, by the time you become 28, they can hire somebody 24 when they hire you, but for less money. They will do that right away. It's a brutal world. So if you're replaceable, you will be replaced. So the only defense against that is to be irreplaceable in this world. And the good news is that you are at your core irreplaceable. There is something strange and weird about you. Once again, I hate to say it, but it's a chapter that I'm writing right now for my Sublime book. Okay, and I explain in Mastery where that comes from biologically, your DNA, how you are marked. as a unique individual at birth, the combination of variants in your chromosomes, it's mathematically impossible for it to ever be replicated. Yes, the variations are marginal. The differences aren't great between you and me, but those little differences are the differences between me liking this kind of hip hop music and you liking a different kind of hip hop music, right? It creates your inclinations, it creates your tastes. And so what the game of life involves is knowing your uniqueness, is knowing who you are, is knowing what makes you weird and what makes you odd. Okay? And the problem is that we're social animals, and the pressure continually on us is to fit into a group, is to be like other people, to have their ideas, to have their values, to have their tastes, to dress like them. Okay? And that happens when you're young, you're in your adolescence. We all go through that phase. I went through that phase. But if you keep on that track when you're in your 20s and on, which is happening a lot today through social media, you're going to lose that sense of what makes you odd and different. I compare it to a voice. When you're very young, that little voice in you is going, Robert, you should be a writer. Chris, you should be a blah, 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 blah. I don't know what it is, right? It's telling you something. And as you get older, you don't hear it anymore because you're hearing all the other, you're hearing your voices of your parents, the teachers, the culture around you, your peers, your friends, telling you this is what's cool, this is what's not cool. And that little voice comes completely drowned out. And so you don't know who you are anymore. And you're afraid, particularly young people today. I mean, maybe it's always been that way. Are so afraid of being different. They're so afraid of being odd. But look at all the powerful people in this world. Look at your Elon Musks. Look at your celebrities in entertainment, in business and politics. They're one of a kind. They have like, I hate that word, but it's like a brand. They're different. They stand out for something that's truly different. You know, even Albert Einstein, there's nobody else like Einstein. There's nobody like Da Vinci. Okay? That's where your power lies. And you'll go, oh, but Robert, those are people that were brilliant, that were talented. I'm not like that. I don't have that. Well, bullshit. You do have that. It's just you're forgetting about it and you don't want to put the effort into it. I talked in Mastery of a woman named Temple Grandin who was born with severe, severe autism. And she was able to find her way to become a very brilliant professor, academic, writer, and about animals, animal behavior, and about autism itself. She found her way to it when she was 3 or 4, she couldn't even speak any language. She was going to be hospitalized. You have that potential. It's just you're not putting the effort into it. You were lazy. You want to fit into the group. You want to conform because it's easy. But your oddness, what makes you weird, what makes you different, that little strange quirk in how you want to dress yourself, that little strange quirk in your musical tastes, that little quirk in the food that you like to eat, that is who you are. Those are signs from deep within, from your core, from your soul, this is who you are. And if you lose that, not only are you not going to be successful in life, you will also lose yourself and you will be unhappy, you'll be alienated from who you are. And you can get away with that when you're young because you're happy, you look good, you've got energy, things are going right. You get into your 30s and you're like everybody else, you don't know who you are and you don't know what you like anymore, and you're just following the trends. You start to get depressed and you start going down this rabbit hole and things can turn really ugly. So you need a bit of courage in life. You need to go, okay, I am weird. I am strange. Lean into it. So when I had the 48 Laws of Power, when I first wrote the book, without it being published yet, it was a very strange looking book, and it reflects my own strangeness. Things on the margins, stories, everything broken up, images, quotes here and there. It's kind of how my brain is, a hodgepodge, kind of a mess, really. And the publishers They bought the book, but then they came back to us and they said, Robert, can you kind of maybe make this more like other books? Can you get rid of all those sections and everything? And I said, no, take it or leave it. This is the book as it is. It's odd, it's strange. They didn't like that because if it doesn't fit into all the other books that have had successful, it's too big of a risk. If this movie isn't like the movies that were made last year, who knows who'll go see it? People are so conservative. But because it was odd, it stood out and it was successful. If I had succumbed and I compromised and made it more like other books, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Sometimes you need a little bit of cojones, you need a little bit of courage. You need to stand up and say, I'm okay being different.
It's fascinating that lots of people, maybe most people, want to be extraordinary in some way, but also don't want to stand out in a way that allows them to be mocked. But, the latter is the price of the former. You can't behave the way that everybody else does and expect to not get the results that everybody else gets. It's like, I think about regressing to a mean that doesn't exist. That everybody is idiosyncratic and unusual in their own way. And we're all imagining this sort of odd 50th percentile avatar that is the most acceptable. But when we think about why we love the people that we love, we don't love them for how average they are. No one's ever said, you know what it is? I'm just besotted with how predictable all of her opinions are. No one's ever said that. We love people for their eccentricities. And a friend George has the idea of non-fungible people, like non-fungible tokens, that it's irreplaceable. There is nobody else like them.
Yeah.
If you think about your favorite memories from your favorite people, it's not from the things that are easily replaceable. It's from the fact that they were just obsessed with football. And when the football was on the TV, you could talk to them and they wouldn't even turn to you. Or it's the fact that they hated violence, or they loved dogs. Every dog walked into the room and they would be gone. They would be away. That's what we love people for. And my favorite strange person from history is Salvador Dali. And I would take it one step further. You said you kind of have this, it's advantageous and also psychologically healthy for you to embrace who you are fully. I actually think in some ways it's maybe I would go as far as to say that it is our duty to humanity. I think it's our duty to embrace the things that only you can do.
Yeah, well, in nature, the diversity of species in a habitat make it vital, make it alive, make it sustainable. And that comes from mutations in the genetic code. Some insect has a mutation, and therefore a whole new species, a whole new thing splinters off from that, and it creates variety. Well, in human culture is like a habitat in a way. So you're marked with uniqueness by your genetic code. Insects don't really have individuality. We have individuality, and they are like mutations. And so your mutation, your difference, you being Chris, is for a purpose. You're marked that way because by mining your uniqueness, your weirdness, your oddness, your little quirky tastes, you're going to contribute something new to the culture. And in contributing something new to the culture, you enrich it, you keep it turning around and round and round. Cultures in the past that die on the vine don't have any variety. You can look at like the Soviet Union at its most, decadent, or when it was really at its worst phase, like in the 70s and 80s. There's no change. There's no variety. Early on, there was all sorts of weird different voices. They ended up getting imprisoned and murdered. Okay, but a culture has to have variety. It has to have a diversity of voices.